gentlemen, a huge round of applause to our one and only CA S Venkataramani, sir.
Members, I'm honored and privileged to introduce our speaker for the second technical session for the conference, CA S Venkataramani, sir. CA S Venkataramani is a science graduate and qualified as chartered accountant in the year 1988. Before joining as partner at Messrs. Singhvi, Dev and Uni, was into practice for a year. Has retired as partner from Messrs. Singhvi, Dev and Uni after 29 years. He's a practicing chartered accountant in the field of indirect taxes and mainly involved in planning and representations at various levels. He is a sought-after speaker at various forums and has presented number of papers both at state and national level. He has authored a few books, Handbook on Value-Added Tax, Audit under KVAT laws, discussion paper on the key issues in proposed GST regime, and a few editions of background material on GST laws published by the ICAI. He has served in various committees of the ICAI, KSCAA, FKCCI, ASSOCHAM, KSCA, and the BCIC. Presently, he is a member in State Advisory Committee for GST in Government of Karnataka. He is an independent director in Kirloskar Ferrous Industries Limited and ISMT Limited. With this brief introduction, I present before you CA S Venkataramani, sir. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Bangalore branch of SARC of ICI, under the AGs of SARC and 7 other branches, am I right? Or is it 8 branches? 7 branches. It's nice to see this huge gathering of professionals here. It gives me immense pleasure to come back to the state level conference of chartered accountants time and again. I think probably I've addressed quite a few conferences, and this one is special because of its stature and the manner in which it is organized. So I find a good number of CAs whom I have met, I think probably after quite a few years, post-COVID. I hadn't met quite a few of them, so it is wonderful to be here and to share the camaraderie. Chairman and Managing Committee members of all the 7 participating branches, Chairman and Managing Committee of members of SARC, Karnataka State Chartered Accountants Association, senior chartered accountants who are sitting here, many youngsters who have worked along with me, many of my own articles from Singhvi, Dev and Uni, some of them, quite a few of them, from industry. Nice to see you all get back to the conference. What you're going to see today is an analysis of how we handle show-cause notices. The credit for whatever I'm going to speak over the next hour and 15 minutes or hour and a half goes to Siddesh, my ex-partner from Singhvi, Dev and Uni. He's done all the legwork, he's done the groundwork, he's prepared the papers. I'm just going to take the credit for whatever he has done. While I was entering the palace grounds, I was really quite emotional to see some of my long-lost friends from various districts who have been here. So it's a real pleasure to meet you all. I promise to spend some time after the session is over to meet you all and have a cup of coffee with you all. Thank you so much. Now, having said that, when Divya called me and said that I will have to handle a session on show cause notices, I was wondering what I should be speaking, how I should handle the way things are going under goods and service tax laws. I did not know where to start and where to end. Nevertheless, I thought since a huge gathering of professionals are here, let's raise the bar of how to handle show cause notices and departmental audits. So the fundamental presumption is that all of you are aware of the basics of the goods and service tax law, basics of the provisions of goods and service tax law, the erstwhile law, and those of you who are youngsters in practice who have not handled the erstwhile law, the belief is that the fundamentals of those laws would already be known to you in some form or fashion. Since almost all of us here are chartered accountants, we also know how to read a financial statement and what books of accounts and bookkeeping actually means. So that is the presumption. So based on that presumption, let's raise the bar to see how we go about handling show cause notices and GST audit. I think the paper that I have written may have been circulated to you. So I will come to that paper part in the end, because you can anyway go home and read that. And there will be only some aspects of that paper which will probably interest you when I add some anecdotes or useful experiences along with that. So I thought, let's now move to handle show cause notices. I always tell youngsters, if you don't know business, don't get into the business of handling show cause notices. This is the fundamental premise or the first step to litigation. If you don't understand business, it's extremely difficult to answer show cause notices. We will be doing a patch job or a hodgepodge job, if I can use that word safely or phrase safely. Now look at the first slide that is coming up to you. Let's try and understand some businesses and run these businesses as our examples when we deal with show cause notices. So I have taken a few businesses here, which we will try and understand how their financial statements are prepared, what could possibly be the show cause notices that they will get, and the nuances and intricacies of handling the provisions of law. Consider Vijayanand Road Lines Limited. I'm sure to each one of you sitting here, something will strike you when I say VRL. Something will strike you. Keep that at the back of your mind. If I say Zoom Cars, most people in Bangalore will know what that business actually means. But the test is whether we know that business at all when we handle show cause notices relating to this business. 3, Yulu. Something hits you, but we'll figure out what it is. You have Ola, you have Uber, you have airport taxis, you have seen contract carriages which move on the roads, which carries supplies of either supplies of goods, say oil tankers of Hindustan Petroleum Corporation or Indian Oil Corporation. What are these contracts? What are these businesses? This apart, we have normal buses, contract carriages. Apart from this, you have construction machinery like bulldozers, earth movers, call it JCBs, call it by whatever name. Now, what is this business? Whether this business is renting, leasing, hiring, transporting, contracting. You get into an auto rickshaw and you please look at the meter, it will tell you for hire. You get into an airport taxi, on top of the taxi, it will be displayed for hire. You book for an Ola or Uber, you don't know whether you are renting an Ola or Uber or hiring an Ola or Uber. You look at Vijayanand Road Lines, he carries passengers, he carries goods. Therefore, he is a passenger transportation or a goods transportation business. You look at this oil tankers which move, it says contract carriage. You have road transport machinery which comes to you with drivers, without drivers, with fuel, without fuel, per hour, per day. What are these businesses? How are these classified? What kind of notices you will get? So when you look at the provisions of goods and service tax law, it will tell you some of these businesses are taxable at a lower rate of 5%, no input tax credit. It will tell you with fuel, you're entitled to input tax credit. It will tell you without input tax credit, you can continue to do business provided you classify yourself as something else. Some of these businesses are really leasing, and whether they are leasing or whether they are hiring, we need to know the intricacies of business. If I look at 25, 30 years back, we never had these complications. If I were to ask my good friend Gunshil, who is sitting here, and ask him, he would say, cycle yardappa Gunshil idu? Sir, badga cycle sir nandala. It was so simple. It was that simple a business. Now look at this. Whether you want to call it renting, leasing, transporting, contracting or hiring, each one of these has different connotations under goods and service tax law. Therefore, the importance of classifying this before you get your show cause notice becomes paramount. That apart, when financial statements of these entities are drawn up, you need to understand the nuances of the income that is reflected in their profit and loss account. You will see there income. This is the heading you will find in the financial statements of a VRL. Now you need to figure out whether it is passenger transport income, rental income, leasing income, hiring income, contract carriage income, or something more than what I am telling you. Some of these businesses, the goods and service tax law classifies as rent-a-cab services. What is rent-a-cab services? Is Ola a rent-a-cab service, Uber a rent-a-cab service, or airport taxi a rent-a-cab services? Or is Yulu renting services or hiring services? Or would it be leasing services? So you need to understand the nuance of this. If you don't understand the nuance of this, you will not understand business. You will not be able to reply to a show cause notice. I don't have time to get into it. Please go back home and look at the transactions. I have next taken, let's say, a simple Girias, VG Paneer Das, I don't know, whichever FMCG company. Please don't go by these names. These names are known to the markets of Bangaloreans. Therefore, I have taken these names. There is no intent meant here. Now, you look at Girias business, for example. He supplies goods which are new, but he also says, give back your old washing machine. Either I buy it back for 5,000 or I will reduce the price of a new Bosch washing machine by 2,500 rupees. So are there really two transactions in this? Or are there three transactions in this? How will a chartered accountant who is finalizing the financial statements of this entity reflect these transactions in his books of account? Now what happens, let's say Kavita, who is sitting here, will take an old washing machine which is there in her house. She will go and strike a bargain with Girias to say, look, this is my 15-year-old washing machine. What price you will give me? I want to buy that Bosch. He can transact in 2 or 3 ways. He will tell you, madam, I don't want this machine. This is a piece of junk. Option 1. Option 2, he will tell you, you leave this machine here, I will give you 1,500 rupees discount. Option 2. Option 3, he will tell you, don't even bring your machine here. Don't bring your machine here. Leave it in your house, but I will still give you 1,500 rupees discount. Option 4, he will tell you, there will be Ravindra Kore will come to your house and pick up that machine for 500 rupees. What is that transaction? Is there one transaction, 2 transactions, 3 transactions? How do we reflect these in financial transactions? Now look at it from Giria's point of view. There is a supply, no doubt. There is a supply, no doubt. And that supply is for a consideration. And if that supply is for a consideration, whether there is an exchange transaction, transfer transaction, barter transaction, or a disposal transaction apart from a sale, which is in the nature of a supply. How do you reflect this? Old goods, second-hand goods, bought out goods in the financial statements. Will you gross it up in that 1,500 rupee discount of Kavita's washing machine that we are talking of? Will you say new machine is 10,000, purchase of old goods or inward supply of old goods is 1,500 rupees? Or will you say outward supply of goods at 8,500 rupees, or in a situation where he says keep that machine in your house, will the supply value be 8,500, or will valuation mechanism kick in under section 15 subsection 3 read with rule 27 to rule 31 to say that it is a 10,000 rupee transaction on which you will be liable to pay tax. However, this 1,500 will not be reckoned for the purpose of issue of show cause notice. How is this considered? Now, can you say that it is a transaction of transfer? Be careful. A transaction of transfer is different from a transaction of transfer of title. Now, a transfer of title can be transfer of title in goods, transfer of title to goods, transfer of title of goods. All three have three different connotations under goods and service tax law. If you say it is a transfer of title in goods, then there will be two transactions. If you say it is a transfer of title of goods, then it will be 10,000 less 1,500. And if you say it is the third leg of transaction, then it can probably result as a discount. Now, whether this agreement is written, whether it needs to be written, whether it is the same 1,500 for Kavita's washing machine and Ravi's washing machine, because his washing machine could only be 2-year-old, how are these reflected as closing stocks in the books of account of Girya? Whoever is the chartered accountant of Girya's, please look at it. Are you at all reflecting this transaction in the books of account as closing stock, however small that value may be? Because Ravi, correct me if I'm wrong, how do you value closing stock? Stock or realizable value, cost or realizable value, whichever is lower. So some 500, some 50 rupees value, it has something. Are you reflecting that in your books of account? Be extremely careful. These are fundamentals of replying to show cause notices. Because the goods and service tax officer will say, the washing machine which is Bosch, same make, same whatever brand, same type, same inward supply, it will be sold for 10,000 to somebody but 8,500 to Kavita madam. Can there be a best judgment? Can there be an estimation? Can there be a comparable value? Ravi sir, illa antira, books all torsidira nivo, Swami closing stock torsidira, discount and torsidira, discount matadidira nivo avratra. Have you spoken to her saying that this discount? Have you said that irrespective of whether it is discount or not, the terms of agreement will say that you return the old washing machine? She doesn't know what she's doing. She will get one invoice, she's happy to take it home. She doesn't know. How are these transactions reflected? So you have to familiarize yourself with business. You must have capability to read financial statements. If you are not capable of reading financial statements, GST will pose unending problems. It will pose unending problems. I am saying, with some amount of experience, that when goods and service tax laws kicked in, we have to pay attention to entries in the books of account. I think somewhere down the line over the last 10 or 15 years, we have stopped paying attention to entries in the books of accounts because the software will do the job. Any ERP software, if you just key in inward supply, you don't know where that entry is sitting in the books of account. It will sit in consumption, it will sit in inward receipts, it will receive inward receipts, pending quality certificate, and I don't know where it will sit. So the man passing entry in the books of account doesn't actually know what this software like Oracle, SAP or ERP is doing. He doesn't know. He doesn't know. He will simply pass one entry in the books of account basis the invoice that he has received. Now, what are the entries in the books of account? Let me give you 2 examples. Let's say I take my good friend Gunshil to a hotel. I buy him food. What is it? Is it entertainment? Is it business promotion? If he gives me a file, will it become marketing? Without that, any of this, miscellaneous expense, under miscellaneous expense, general expense, under general expense, other expense. Now this is how we are used to classifying entries in the books of account. What is this expenditure? We have no idea what we are doing. We have no clue where this expense is going and sitting. Look at a different example. If the same Gunshil goes to, let's say, an Oran Mall, when he enters, somebody will give him one glass of juice when he gets into whichever store that is. You will get a glass of juice. What is that glass of juice? Is it sample? Is it entertainment? Is it business promotion? Is it marketing? Because that lady who is there will tell Gunshil, sir, juice was good. Yes, madam, wonderful. Sir, 2 1-liter packs for 80 rupees. Now, what is this entry that you are going to pass in the books of account for these transactions? What is it? We have no idea. We have lost sight of this fact. Don't ask me what I will do. I will tell you later. Now, we need to pay attention. If you are going to say it is entertainment expense, forget your input tax credit. If you say it is marketing support, you are entitled to input tax credit. If you say business promotion, you are entitled to input tax credit. If you say it is free food, forget your input tax credit. You have to be extremely careful when you are passing entries in your books of account. Next, notes to accounts. Please pay attention to notes to accounts. We don't pay attention to notes to accounts. If you don't pay attention to notes to accounts, the first step of handling show cause notice fails then there. You cannot get back to it later. Let's say I have a good friend of mine, Srikanta, sitting here. He will simply put one note to account in the accounting policy. He will say, revenue is recognized on raising of invoice. Now, nobody knows whether goods have moved, goods have not moved, goods are appropriated to the contract, whether or not goods exist, we don't know. Revenue is recognized on raising of invoice. Gunshil will say, revenue is recognized on dispatch of goods. The third chartered accountant will say, revenue is recognized on appropriation of goods to the contract. Whether those goods are ready for dispatch or not is another matter. So on 31(3), chartered accountants also do a lot of things to keep their margins intact. Last year 6.27% GP, this year 6.49% GP, 1.2, ITO will accept, don't bother. So we do a lot of things. Now, those will come back and haunt you under goods and service tax law. It will come back and haunt you under goods and service tax law when you attempt to raise an invoice, when you recognize revenue in the books of account. You would have raised an invoice, but you will be raising an e-way-bill 2 weeks later for dispatch of goods, which is the subsequent month. So where does this revenue go? There will be a mismatch between e-way-bill, revenue in the books of account, revenue relating to subsequent year. On top of that, if you have an advance, you are finished. If you have an advance, you are finished. Worse, if those goods are returned. Still worse, if those goods are rejected. Because return and reject fall on completely different footing. So, there will be something which is post-balance sheet, something which is during the course of preparation of the financial statement. There will be some event or activity that occurs during the course of audit when Ravindra's article clerks goes and do some ticking there. The fourth one, when Ravindra sits there for analysis of the financial statements, he will look at it completely differently. Now, pay attention to these transactions. Otherwise, you will not be able to handle show cause notices. Next, requirement under allied laws. Now, I've just taken one example of each before we come to show cause notices. You have something called corporate guarantees. Now, this corporate guarantee business does not stop here. You have bank guarantee, you have performance guarantee, you have corporate guarantee. You have now the latest one which has come is letter of assurance. Apart from this, I will not name who does it because some CS are doing it. We have what is called as comfort letter. Now, I don't know what is comfort letter. If it is uncomfortable, what to do, we don't know. So, we are issuing comfort letters. So, we issue comfort letters. Now, what are these transactions under the goods and service tax law? Now, if you look at a transaction relating to corporate guarantee, you look at a chartered accountant who is preparing Schedule 3. Correct, Srikanta? Now Schedule 3, no longer Schedule 6. Correct? Yes, yes, yes. So you prepare Schedule 3. Now in Schedule 3, in notes to account in AS 117 or 119 or I don't know what. You have some accounting treatment which you will give for the purpose of recognition of notional income, where entries in books of account will be passed. Ravi, when he prepares the computation statement under income tax law, he will not declare income. No income. Yak swami, tax katti adr mele, ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತೀರಲ್ಲ ನೀವು ಇಷ್ಟೊಂದು ದೊಡ್ಡ ನೋಟ್ ಹಾಕಿದ್ದೀರಾ ಹಿಂದೆ ನಾವು ಜಿ ಎಸ್ ಟಿ ಆಫೀಸರ್ ನಾವೇನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ನಮ್ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ತೋರಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ನೋಡಿ ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ನೀವು ಕಟ್ಬಿಡಿ ಆಮೇಲೆ ನೋಡೋಣ ನಾವು ವಾಟ್ ಇಸ್ ದಿಸ್ ಪರ್ಫಾರ್ಮೆನ್ಸ್ ಗ್ಯಾರಂಟಿ, ವಾಟ್ ಇಸ್ ದಿಸ್ ಕಾರ್ಪೊರೇಟ್ ಗ್ಯಾರಂಟಿ, ವಾಟ್ ಇಸ್ ದಿಸ್ ಕಂಫರ್ಟ್ ಲೆಟರ್, ವಾಟ್ ಇಸ್ ದಿಸ್ ಅಶ್ಯೂರೆನ್ಸ್? nobody knows. In each of these transactions, whether there is an existence of service, who is the supplier of service, who is the recipient of service. Next, now in this corporate guarantee business, what happens? The parent company will issue a corporate guarantee to a banker or financial institution. The recipient of loan or I don't know whatever, he has nothing to do with the supplier receipt. He is just sitting tight, he is sitting quiet. The government says, I will estimate its value based on your AS valuation. He says, you are only giving me that value. You are giving me. Now look at the taxability of this transaction under goods and service tax law. What are the 4 ingredients of taxation under goods and service tax law when you are to confront a show cause notice? There must be goods or service. There must be goods or service existing, right? There must be a taxable person, there must be a recipient, and there must be a consideration. Now, who is the recipient? What is the consideration in this? If you look for consideration, there is no consideration. It is a notional entry that is passed in the books of account. And I understand it is reversed on the first day of the subsequent month to bring in another notional income for the subsequent year. So, where is show cause? Where is reply? How do we commence writing reply? Now consider this event. Is there one event, taxable event, or are there multiple taxable events in this corporate guarantees? Corporate guarantee is given for 100 crores. Now why is this corporate guarantee given? This corporate guarantee is an assurance to the financier saying that fellow will repay the loan. And he says, every year you have to pay 10 crores for subsequent 10 years. Government says, state government says, GST department says, I will estimate 1 to 5% of this transaction value as income and subjective to tax. Whether that 1 to 5% is taxable on day 1, taxable on date of guarantee, taxable on a deferred payment amortization basis, taxable in the last year of installment, what happens if Ravi defaults? What happens if you default? How do you handle this show cause notice? How do you handle it? We will look at that subsequently. Understanding agreements. If you don't read the agreement and understand an agreement, you will not be able to reply to a show cause notice. There are several types of agreements. POAs are power of attorneys. Does power of attorney have a valuation? Does power of attorney have a valuation? Can you ascribe a value to a power of attorney? Let's say I give a power of attorney to Kavita madam who is sitting here and tell her, you are free to deal with my 25 acre of property in Jayanagar. Huh? She can sell, transfer, dispose, do whatever she wants in terms of that power of attorney. Correct? She can do what she wants. She can even collect the consideration. Whether she transfer it to the original title holder or not is another matter. That is civil case. We will handle with that later. How do you handle these show cause notices? How do you handle this show cause notice? We will see. Joint development agreements. Whether there are inferred supplies, whether there are notional supplies in these joint development agreements. If yes, how many kinds and classes of supplies are there? Be careful. Kind of supply, class of supply. Both have different connotations under goods and service tax law. Both have different connotations. Can you say the transaction of construction for the purpose of giving it or handing it over to the landowner is a works contract service? If yes, how do you value that? If yes, how do you value that? What entry you will pass in the books of account when you hand over this constructed portion to the landowner? Will that entry be passed on the date of completion, that is date of completion, or on the date of obtaining occupation certificate, or do you pass these work in progress entries year on year basis in the books of account? Consider it, whether you want to disclose or whether you want to note. If yes, on what basis, under which law? You please think of that. Next, if you look at contracts, now, we have different kinds of contracts. We have different kinds of contracts. You will have job work contracts. You will have contract for supply of goods and services. You will have annual maintenance contracts. You will have leave and license supplies. You will have lease contracts. You will have hiring contracts. You will have contract for what? I don't know. You will have that many contracts. The essence of these contracts are to capture the 4 limbs of taxation under goods and service tax law. It is one of the requirements. You may choose to bring that in your contract, or you may choose not to bring it into the contract. It is the draftsman's choice. But it is also the assessee who is going to suffer as a subsequent stage if you do not bring the 4 limbs of the contract. Who is the supplier? Who is the recipient? What is the taxable event? What is the value or measure for levy of tax? If these 4 are not there, ingredients are not there, remember, you can land in estimations. Your show cause notice can be terrible. Next, you have contractual obligations. What is a contractual obligation? The contract will have several terms to be fulfilled by the principal and by the contractor. It will have several terms and conditions. These are the arrangements between the principal and the contractor. Contracts will have a clause that if the supply in terms of the contract does not happen, there will be some penal provision that the contract will get extended, that there will be 50,000 per day, that I will not accept the goods which are not supplied or the services which are supplied before or after the contractual date. You will have all of these as terms and conditions. Now look at these terms and conditions. Should you or should you not consider a clause in the contract which would say that the value of the contract will come down, or do you want to say that this is a penal clause that will be there in the contract? Choice is yours. You decide. If you say that this is a penal clause, please face Schedule 2, Para 5, Clause E. If you say this is not a penal clause, but the value of the contract will be brought down from rupees 100 to rupees 90, if these contractual clauses are not, there will be no further liability to tax. Consider this. Do whatever you want to do. Job working. In my career spanning 37 years, if I see this word job working, I will need a doctor beside me. I am scared. I want to know whether the job worker is actually a job worker, he is a manufacturer, he is a leave and license manufacturer, he is a subcontractor who has been assigned a different name, whether he will become a related party. Please consider this. Please consider this. Those of you who handled excise here will tell me this Venkat has absolutely no sense. In Ujagar Print's case, the law has been laid down under the excise law that a job worker can never become a related party. But consider what I am saying under the goods and service tax law. Whether this man will become a related party. You control his supplies. You say you have to buy only from Lata Madam. You should not buy from anyone else. You should not buy. You say you should buy only 1 mm steel. You control the price. You control the supply. You control the time. You control the production. You control the volume. You control his cash flow. You become a guarantor for his borrowings. You control his stocks. You become a transporter to negotiate his contracts for supply. You also contract the scrap that is generated by him and at what price it is to be sold. You negotiate the price depending upon the quantum of grinding tools that are used by him. What not? Should he or should he not be considered a related party? If he is a related party, Section 15 fails. Transaction value will be subjected to valuation under 15.3. If I am the officer, expect a show cause. I will reject your books of account. I will reject your books of account. In fact, I have seen principals having the checkbooks of job workers in their office. I'm not joking. I have seen principals maintaining job workers' books of account. I'm not joking. I'm very serious when I'm making these statements. Consider the case. Should I or should I not consider this job worker as a related party and therefore reject the transaction value of job work, put you through an estimation under 29 or 30, Rule 30. Read with Section 15, subsection 3, your life will become miserable. Your life will be miserable. And trust me, this is going to happen. When it will happen, I don't know. Consider this case relating to contracts and contractual obligations before we go to job work. Take a company like Jindal. There is a distinction between waste products, byproducts, scrap that is generated. What Jindal does, I'm sure those of you who go on that Ballari Hospital Road will see flares. Gas is flared, which I am not able to store, compress and move. This Corex gas is given to a company for use as fuel, and in return I get oxygen. Is that a transaction of exchange? Is that a transaction of barter? Is it a transaction between two related parties? Is this transaction a subject matter of valuation? Are these valuations captured in your work in progress? Are these valuations captured as a part and parcel of your outward supply in your financial statements? Are questions which facts alone can answer. Facts alone can answer. Nobody can answer these questions. You have to be factual, on the ground, see the document, see the transaction, visit the plant, and then come to a conclusion. Next, understand the provisions relating to unbilled revenue. Most chartered accountants here who are preparing financial statements or signing financial statements prepared by the management will say unbilled revenue. Now, what is this unbilled revenue? Have you ever sat and analyzed unbilled revenue? Is it income accrued, not due? Accrued and due, but not dispatched. If it is service, life is horrible. If it is goods, at least you can do something, right? Or is it accrued and due, but not received? Accrued and due, but not received. Consider annual maintenance contracts. Consider annual maintenance contracts. All of us are familiar with annual maintenance contracts. What happens in annual maintenance contracts? Kavita will enter into a contract for annual maintenance for a period of, let us say, 12 months, spread over a period of 12 months, spread over different financial years. Are you entitled to take input tax credit in year 1? Are you fulfilling the clauses required under conditions required under Section 16? Is there receipt of service? You are going to get this service at a later point in time. At a later point in time, are you permitted to claim the input tax credit on day 1 based on this annual maintenance contract? Can you say the day on which I enter into an annual maintenance contract, it is a firm contract and therefore payments are made, therefore I am entitled to input tax credit, without fulfilling the 4 pillars of Section 16, where the service is coming later, input tax credit is coming now. Now you go back to the financial statements. Ashok Raghavan will say, sir, these are prepaid expenses. To the extent of the financial year or for that period alone, we will recognize this as revenue. for the subsequent periods it will become prepaid expenses. So if 12 lakhs is the annual maintenance contract value, 7 lakhs is what he will debit P&L account, 5 lakhs is what he will show as prepaid expenditure. So your balance sheet is saying that I have not received the service and I am entitled to receive this service the subsequent year. How are you entitled to claim input tax credit then? Why don't you reverse the input tax credit? Why don't you reverse? Trust me, some of these manufacturing companies have got substantive annual maintenance contracts. They've got substantive annual maintenance contracts. Now you want to consider taking credit, probably facing the wrath of 74 later, or you want to reverse it yourself. Choice is yours. But if you reverse it, whether you will be in a position to take the credit subsequently, you won't have an invoice. Invoice will be on day one. Or should you restate the contracts to say, my annual maintenance contract will, although the primary document is the contract, the invoice for this will be issued on a month-on-month basis. Consider it. Consider it if you want to avoid litigation. Next, you consider contracts relating to renting. I am now not talking renting of car, bus, etc. I am now talking renting contracts. What is the difference between renting and letting out? What is the difference between renting, leasing, and letting out? What is the difference between renting, leasing, letting out, paying guest accommodation? What is the difference between renting, leasing, letting out, paying guest accommodation, complimentary accommodation in a hotel? What is the difference? What is the classification? Where will you classify this under the SSC codes? Where will you classify this? Consider this. Next. Once again, in my career spanning 37 years, I have never understood the connotation of these words used by chartered accountants. Sir, the entry pass madabittidevu sir. Which means whether it is accounted, not accounted, when accounted, in which books accounted. We have to see. It may be in sales register or outward supply register. It may not have hit the GL. I don't know. I don't know. You may have raised an invoice. You may not have passed an entry in the books of account. Works contract services, notional services for landowners. You may have no entry in books of account, not accounted. Sir, work contract invoice landowner ga sir, account madilla sir navo. When that showcase when that inspecting team comes, you will find one big bunch of 50 invoices. Yellapa entry sir, the entry bookal barala sir. Bookal barala sir. Yo yelaya barutte, bookal barlilla andre yelaya barutte. Sir, ನಮ್ಮ ಆಯಿಟ್ರು ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ sir, the answer. This is where we stop. Beyond that, we don't know what to do. Next. Accounting at the time of payment. You go to any PSU. I'm saying this with some amount of responsibility. You go to any large company. Go to that accountant's table and open his drawer. You will find 50 invoices. Yo, yaka yene sir, payment ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಎಂಟ್ರಿ ಆಗ್ತೀವಿ ಸರ್. ಯೋ ನೀನು ಪೇಮೆಂಟೇ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನಯ್ಯ ಮಾಡಲಿ ಸರ್? ನಮ್ಮ ಅಸಿಸ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕರೆಕ್ಟಾಗಿ ನೋಡ್ಕೋತಾರೆ ಸರ್. ಅಸಿಸ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಹೋಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು ಮಾಡೋದು? ವಿ ಡೋಂಟ್ ನೋ. ವಿ ಡೋಂಟ್ ನೋ ವಾಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪನ್. ರೈಟ್? Accounting at the time of payment. We have yet another set of fellows who will tell you accounting at the time of acceptance. You go to BHL, you go to BEL, you go somewhere else. Sorry to use these names. You go to these entities. The goods that has arrived with invoice will be lying in the stockyard for 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks. We don't know. Goods have come. Outward supply booked by the supplier. Outward supply booked. GSTR 1 filed. Reflected in 2A. No entry passed in books of account of the recipient. Where are these goods? Sir, inspection QC has to happen, sir. When will QC happen? Sir, he's on leave for 2 months. After he comes, it will happen. So, the deputy commissioner who comes for inspection is not my uncle. He will do whatever is required to be done under law. He will do what is required to be done. So, that is yet another one. Acceptance of invoices. There will be one fifth class of transactions. It will be reflecting in 2A. Entry books sir, invoice ವಾಪಸ್ ಕಳಿಸ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀನಿ sir. Why did you send the invoice back? Why did you send the invoice back? Sir, date ತಪ್ಪಾಕ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದೆ sir. Word figure wrong ಆಗಿತ್ತು sir. ವಾಪಸ್ ಕಳಿಸ್ಬಿಟ್ಟೆ. Whether that invoice will come later, it will not come later. Goods have been put to use. Services have been consumed. Services have been consumed. Entry in books would not have come. Entry in books will not have come. Holding payments for short supplies, excess supplies, we have somewhere down the line lost the concept of debit and credit note. Debit and credit note is a concept which I've never understood in my lifetime. Now there is a third dimension to it. They call financial debit note and financial credit note. Now I don't know whether there is a goods debit note and service debit note. So they're calling it as financial debit note and financial credit note. Now what are these financial debit note and financial credit note? God alone knows. God alone knows. Please go to section 34. There are only 4 classes of transactions which will be covered by debit or credit notes. No other transaction. The GST law does not recognize any other transaction. You may have it for the purpose of some other law or allied law. GST law does not take care of these transactions. So you be extremely careful of these contractual obligations. Next. We have already talked about AMC, agreement to sell, etc., due dates for payment. Now, somewhere down the line, we have lost sight of harmonized system of nomenclature. We have lost sight of classification of goods and services. How did you consider this 73054214? Sir, that supplier has put that code, therefore I am putting this code. Your supplier will die, will you also die? We won't. So, we put that onus on the supplier without checking the HSN. Now consider this case. Consider this case. Supplier has supplied, supplier has paid the taxes, supplier has disappeared. Tomorrow, if you are a trader and you are an officer who is knowledgeable, he will tell you 73054206 is taxable at 18% and not 5%. You are finished. You cannot take a plea that the supplier has charged 5% and therefore I am charging 5%. Therefore, the due diligence of classification is lost somewhere down the line. It's lost somewhere down the line. Consider a second case. What if this HSN, 8-digit HSN code, the rate of tax is changed in the subsequent year? You can't take a plea, last year I charged 5, therefore this year I will charge 5, or the HSN code for that was actually different. Having consistently followed the practice of classifying it under 73420504, you can't now change your classification without any specific reason. So, HSNs are crucial for the purpose of replies to show cause notice. Stock reporting. Actual stock, book stock, GP stock, GP, gross profit stock, GP stock, goods in transit, work in progress for services, depending on milestone achievements. We don't pay attention to this. We don't pay attention to this. I will give one example where I'm handling a show cause notice. Again, I have nothing to do against the sector. There is no sector bias. There was a jeweler who took insurance for 2 crores. 2 crores. So insurance, whatever, 15,000, 28,000, 40,000, whatever is the premium debited, input tax credit availed. So this particular officer in Chennai came. He said, what is your jewelry? We will take stock. He said, all, please take stock, etc. There was jewelry stock of only 40 lakhs. So his first question was, give me your insurance coverage. Insurance was for 2 crore. So he asked him, why did you take insurance for 2 crore? He said, sir, peak stock, bottom stock, all this. He said, take your peak stock. Peak stock was only 71 lakhs. Then he took the argument that how much I take my insurance is my problem. It is not your problem. It is not my. I anticipated to effect inward supplies for 2 crores. Based on anticipation, he said, based on anticipation, I will estimate your closing stock to say some of it is not accounted in the books of account. You fight. For however long you want to fight, you fight. So that case is still going on. So when we do audit, when we reply to show cause notices, allied documentation becomes crucial. Look at transactions like complimentary tickets, complimentary food, complimentary stay. How do you go about valuation of these transactions? How do you go about valuation of these transactions? Is there a valuation? If yes, whether it is transaction value or market value, is transaction value and market value the same? Or should you reverse input tax credit? Or should you recognize revenue in your books of accounts? Or should you give a note in the notes to accounts to say that complementary services or complementary goods have not been considered and have been discrepancies, if any, have been adjusted in the stock? Do you want to give? If you give, I will estimate. If you don't give also, I will estimate. Be careful of how you are going to deal with these transactions. Composite and mixed supplies, those builders and developers, those landowners who are renting immovable property with electricity, water and other amenities for a single price. Those of you who have submitters for electricity, water, whether it will become a composite supply, you can take the plea that electricity and water are exempt supplies, therefore they are not composite supplies, therefore they will not fall under 2 subsection 31 read with section 8, and therefore they cannot be a subject matter of levy. Possible, fight your case. Hotel business. Most hotel businesses are susceptible to valuation. Most hotel businesses, because there will be convention halls where there will be bundled services like this. Now whether this video conferencing equipment is the primary supply and the hall becomes an incidental supply, who is to determine this? Which is the primary supply? Which is the primary supply? I am saying Ravi has taken this hall because of the video conferencing equipment and not because of the size of the hall and the number of people it can accommodate. You will say, I have taken this primarily because it can accommodate 1,500 delegates and video conferencing equipment is an ancillary service and not a primary service. Now, whether you should go on value or whether you should go on volume, whether you should go on square foot or whether you should go on the nature of service provided is a matter of judgment. It is a matter of judgment. Be careful when you get these show cause notices of how you will deal with it. Next. Now, keeping all these examples in mind, let's start handling no show cause notices. A notice is primarily an allegation. A notice is an allegation which sets the law in motion. It sets the law in motion. Now, whether that allegation must be responded to by you is a matter of judgment. Is a matter of judgment. I can allege that Ravi is not only a professional practicing law, but you are engaged in carrying on jewelry business. It could be an allegation. You want to respond to it, you respond. You don't want to respond to it, we will see what will happen to you later after another 15 minutes. Right? So your choice is yours. So the law sets in motion. Law says you have 2 classes of business. One profession, the other jewelry. Law is set in motion. Now our certificate of practice by CA and all that we'll handle later. This is just an example. So law is set in motion. Second, whether you want to respond to that allegation by giving additional information to say, sir, what you are talking, sir? If I do jewelry business, my COP will go. You will say you forget your COP or you come to this point because you have so much of jewelry in your professional premises. So I want to tell you that you are carrying on the business of jewelry as well. New papa yavado gift ತಗೊಂಬಂದು ಇಟ್ಟಿರ್ತೀರಾ ಅವನು ಅವತ್ತು ಬಂದ. Now 3. reply of taxpayer may or may not be acceptable. May or may not be acceptable. He may accept, he may not acceptable, but it could lead to a completely different finding or observation. It could lead to a completely different finding or observation. What is that finding? That finding is, how did this jewelry come to your professional business premises? What made it come here? What made it come here? You can always say, sir, it is my client's stock, sir. His office is locked, sir. Therefore, I got it here, sir. ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಇವೆ ಬಿಲ್ ಎಲ್ಲಪ್ಪ, ಯಾರು ಅವ್ನ ಕ್ಲೈಂಟು, ಅವ್ನ ಬುಕ್ ಏನಾಯಿತು, ಅವ್ನ ಸಪ್ಲೈಯರ್ ಯಾರು, ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ನಮಗೇನು ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. ವಾಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಈ ಡೂ? 67 ಇದು ಒಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ದಿನ ನನ್ನ ಹತ್ರ ಇರಲಿ ಅಂತ ಎತ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ತಾನೆ. Let it be with me. You come with all the proof. Let us see later. And he will make you swear on oath in the Mahazar that this was found in your business premises. Consequently, what institute will do by way of disciplinary proceeding, we'll see later. We'll see that later. But here, the due process of law has set in. And he will give you a notice. And that notice, you have to receive. If you are saying that it is my client's jewelry that is present here, but my nature of business is something else, you want to say that in the Mahazar, you don't want to say that in the Mahazar, or you want to say that what is written above is something which I have not understood, write that and sign in a different language in Telugu. Because you will not know Telugu. Em Rashnaro mak telledo, sign. Huh? You want to do that, you do it. Then you come to my office, I will see what I will do. Right? So you are free to do what you want, but the law has set in motion. Next, legality of the notice. Whether that notice, that Mahazar, including the summons that he issues there, is legal. If you don't know the law, you will not know what to do. If somebody comes for inspection, the first is fear factor. Namaga already jora, 102 is 104 abad. We'll have fever. So we don't know what to do, whether we should ask him for INS1. If we ask him for INS1, whether all the 6 items are ticked. Yen sir, return wrongo, stock wrongo, transaction. Ishton tap madidina sir nanu. Fear factor will set in. He may not have ticked anything. Sumne one letter sign madkom bandirtan. We are scared to ask for it. We are scared to ask for it. But the law has set in motion. Law has set in motion. Choice is yours. There is a latest trend called endorsement. This has come from sales tax regime. Sales tax regime, not even VAT regime. There is no concept of endorsement under GST law, but we continue to reply to it. We continue to file our reply. Sir, endorsement kottbididan sir, 3 days time kottbididan sir, I have to reply sir, otherwise he will confirm the demand sir. Wow, what will he confirm without show cause notice under 73? Nothing. So you are substituting one error with another error. One error with another error. You must have the courage of conviction to ask him, boss, what is this endorsement? Which section, which rule, which notification? You ask him. You ask him, how have you issued? What is the basis on which you are given 3 days time? Let him point out the section, subsection, rule, sub-rule, notification, circular, press release, handout, or any other authority's direction. Then you reply. Law is set in motion. If you reply, law has set itself in motion. Most notices issued in Karnataka don't carry the document reference number, or notification issued in May 2023 by the government of Karnataka to say RFN, which says a reference number of the document. It doesn't. Court decisions are there which say if DIN or RFN is not there, the notice is ab initio void. You write to him saying, I will not reply till you mentally be ready to face the consequence after he rectifies the defect. He will rectify that defect. Houda vaso? Sir, next week banni, nodತೀನಿ ninge. Then you are finished. Your fever will convert to some other disease. So you have to be careful when you have if you have the courage of conviction to reply to these notices. Granting personal hearing versus seeking personal hearing. He may tell you in the notice itself, you are hereby granted a personal hearing at 11 a.m. on so-and-so date in the summons. If he doesn't, and if you don't seek, the law is set in motion. Law is set itself in motion. Tacit acceptance implies acceptance of that notice. Next, spot recoveries during inspection. Most chartered accountants here will have the experience saying, sir, what pressure, sir. 6 fellows have come. Night 10:30, they have not gone, sir. They are not going. Until I made the DRC 03, the man is not leaving the premises. Who is that man to ask you to effect payment? Give him the give him the circular 181, 182 and 183 to say that the board has issued circulars that you cannot recover. Give him that. We don't have the courage to give him. We want to pay because there will be something else that will be found. Otherwise, he will tell you, "Idu bitbidತೀನಿ adu katbidi. You pay that, I will leave this." Now, he will not leave. It will come later. It will come later. So, there is no requirement to pay during inspection. The central board circular is there. Board circular is there. Raising demands without show cause notice. So, he will give you an endorsement to say, please effect this payment of tax, penalty, interest, CGST, SGST, IGST within 3 days. What is that notice? What is that show cause notice? What is that order? What is that demand? Nobody knows what it is. Sir, order banbitide, sir. Order banbitide. Next. I first told you, an allegation sets in motion the law. Next, we talk of principles of natural justice. I don't think we need to waste time on this. Best judgment versus guesswork. How many of you, while replying to show cause notices issued under 65, read with section 73 or 74, taken a ground that there can be no estimations in 73 or 74 notice, pursuant to an audit under section 65 or 66. Section 65 says, an audit shall be conducted. What is an audit under section 2 subsection 13? An audit under section 2 subsection 13 is only in respect of 4 transactions. 1, to verify the correctness of turnover, verify the correctness, to check the taxes paid, to check the refunds claim, and the ITC availed. Thus far, no further. No further. How many of you have written in the show cause notice, as a reply to show cause notice, that in terms of section 2 subsection 13, you are nobody to question these transactions? In the first 2 slides, I gave you all those examples. If those issues have come, have any of us taken this ground? I don't think we have. Time frame allowed for replies and submissions. Please go back to the rule book and check what is the time frame that is allowed. Some have 15 days, some have 10 days, some have 30 days, some have 3 months and not 90 days, some have 90 days and not 3 months. All these are different connotations under law. You have to go back to the rule book and try and find out how we take care of those things. Next, cause of action, pinpointing a taxable supply. It has become a habit with the department to first propose a transaction to tax. He will first propose a transaction to tax, and then he will start finding out where is the supply. Where is the supply? Law is exactly the reverse. You first have to pinpoint the supply and then figure out the rate of tax. He will take miscellaneous income and say, I propose to levy tax at the rate of 18%. In miscellaneous income, you have general income. Under that, you will have other income. You will have all kinds of income there. Now, to say that miscellaneous income will be subject to tax at the 18%, he should first say what is the service, what is the classification of service, what is the kind of service, what is the nature of service, what is the income, what is the evidence that he supports his allegation with, what is the document that is there in his possession. You ask him those questions before you reply to show cause notice. But what do? You go with schedule to balance sheet. And not just schedule to balance sheet, groupings to balance sheet. And from groupings to balance sheet to voucher to invoice to this, and go and give him all the details, somewhere you will get caught again. You will get caught again. Sir, ಇದು ಯಾವುದು ಹೊಸ್ತಾ ಬಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದೆ ಸರ್, ಇದು ಕೊಡಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋದೆ ಇವನು ಏನೋ ಬೇರೆ ಕೇಳ್ತಾನೆ ಸರ್, ಹೌದಪ್ಪ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಏನು ಮಾಡೋದು, ಏನು ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. So you have to handle that. So be careful when you reply to show cause notices. Allegation versus evidence. The show cause notice will tell you, since the supplier is not traceable, input tax credit is not permissible under law. You ask Ashok Raghavan, he will ask, his first question will be, how do you know supplier is not existing? Did you go to his house? When did you last see him? Did you check with his neighbor? Did you give a police complaint? When was the last return that he filed? What was the last income that he had? Did you make enquiries with neighbors? Did you draw up a mahazal to say this man is missing? Who is the person who is occupying this business premise now? Did you draw up a statement? The officer will say, thank you, nin bittu hogappa, thank you. No, we don't ask these questions. We don't ask. Sir, supplier ilva sir, yen madbek sir ivaga? We'll tell you, come to my office, I'll tell you what to do. So, be careful. Be careful. In respect of these cases, ask questions. Tell him to give you evidence. Presumption of an offense versus existence of an offense. Go to the same example. The assing authority presumes that the supplier is not there. But is there an existence of an offense? He may actually have been there. He may have shifted his premises to the next. He might not have written a letter to the department. That's all he would have done. He would have changed his business premise and gone off from KIDB industrial area to some other place. He would not have written a letter. He would not have reflected an additional place of business. So existence of an offense versus presumption of an offense. You have to be careful. Both are completely different under law when you answer show cause notices. Because it can convert to a 73 notice or 74 notice depending upon the nature of the offense. Next, vagueness in notices. All notices are vague. All notices are vague. There is no legality or logic. In fact, I have read several notices which says, logically speaking, input tax credit should not be allowed to. Logically speaking, you should not have been an officer in the department. Huh? How can you make statements saying that logically speaking, you are not entitled to input tax credit? Logic does not see law and vice versa. It doesn't. So you have to be very careful. Now in the case that I am talking about, this was the show cause notice that came. He said, logically speaking, Ashok Raghavan should be the person who should be made liable to tax. Huh? All the while I have been filing returns in Kunshil sign saying he is the taxable person. Now we shifted the taxable person itself to say, I don't want tax from Kunshil, but I want tax from Ashok Raghavan. Idiyangappa ido, yun yellind banda yevno, how did it come? Now we have to try and figure out. So it says, logically, Ashok should have paid tax. But legally, you have made this man pay tax. So who is the fellow who should pay tax? I have to now find out. Are you saying that the chartered accountant who is filing returns have given this fact a go by? I am not saying yes, or I am not saying no, because I am replying to this notice. So I cannot say, matter is sub judice. Next, rights, remedies, and safeguards. Whenever you make a reply to the show cause notice, protect your right. Protect a remedy that will be available to you, if not today, tomorrow. Put in enough checks and balances which will safeguard the position of law first, fact next, or fact first, along with law, and the interest of the assessee. So put in adequate checks, balances, and safeguards. Next. Kavita, madam, you have to tell me when I should stop, right? We will take some questions from here. Next. Notices must contain allegations which are led by evidence. A notice which is issued, which is supported by evidence. If, for example, the assessing authority says that Siddesh is not entitled to input tax credit because Kavita madam is not traceable, here is the screenshot, here is the mahazar, here is the inspection report by somebody else, then my question will be, oh, sir, ನೀವು inspection madilva? Ashok Raghavan has inspected Kavita madam's house and come to a conclusion she is non-existent. Now I don't know who this Ashok Raghavan is and whether at all he knows Kavita madam's house, we don't know. We don't know. Reliance is placed on some third party to say Kavita madam is non-existent. Non-existent. She may be sitting in conference when somebody is there at her house. Now to say that here is an allegation to say somebody is not there, the registered taxpayer is missing, and therefore you are not entitled to input tax credit, is an allegation devoid of evidence. You ask for evidence. What is the basis for your conclusion? Are you placing reliance on Ravindranath's judgment? You could be wrong. Could be wrong. You don't like a person. Therefore, you might have given a statement. Swami, Ashok Raghavano, avanu ilve illa sir, nanu noda illa anta. You would have had coffee in the morning with him. What that love? Nodan. Huh? Perfectly possible. Why not? Why not? So you have to lead it with evidence. Next, notices cannot state, it appears. You take most notices. It will tell you, it appears that you have not accounted. Huh? You have done audit of my books of account, right? How can you say it appears that you have not accounted for this transaction? Come back and check. Come back and check. Why are you saying it appears to me? You say, I have verified the books of accounts and I find that this invoice is not accounted. Say it categorically. Don't say it appears. Just as we give, in case of true and fair, it appears that the financial statements read with books. Allinda varta irodu idu. It appears. How can it appear? Let it not appear. You come and check and put in your appearance here. Next. Notice must be clear and unambiguous. If the notice is not clear, don't reply. You write to him. Sir, in para 2 you say, Madam Kavita is missing. What is the basis of your information? Kindly let me know before I reply to para 2. Put the ball back in his court. Leave it there for some time. He'll tell you, Ravi, out of fear you will not write that. But do it 2 times. Third time you will be all right. Third time you will be all right. Next. Validity of notice. Most notices will tell you 73/74. How can Ashok Raghavan issue a notice 148/154? You tell me 148 or 154. Don't tell me 148/154. And if 148, which subsection, which clause, which rule, which circular of IT? Similarly, 154 rectification, which subsection, which clause, why should I do it, whether it is on face of record, not on the face of record, apparent on record, not apparent on record, needs scrutiny, needs finding, needs observation. It's a matter of judgment. So don't say 73/74. If he says /73 or 74, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you write back to him saying there are 7 issues in the show cause notice by para 1 to para 4, between page 7 to page 19. Please tell me issue-wise, which is that issue which is under section 73 and which is it which is under 74, read with relevant subsection, rule, and the definition clause. So you write. Till then, don't reply. And in that, have the courage of conviction to write that unless you tell me under which section you have given the notice, my time limit does not start for the purpose of replying. Have the courage of conviction to write. Nothing will happen. Sky will not fall down. Next. Notice must be precise and accurate. Notice must be precise and accurate. A notice cannot say that you have not raised invoices in respect of outward supply. You have done audit for 1 week. You have got the courage of conviction to tell me that I have not raised invoices for outward supplies. Which outward supply I have not raised, he has to tell me. Which outward supply I have not raised is something he should be telling me. So you ask him precisely under which section or subsection that this notice has been issued. Otherwise, seek data or seek details. Examine whether the contents of the notice are in accordance with law. The contents of the notice must be in accordance with law. It should be dated. It should tell the name and address of the officer. It should give his mail ID. It should give his phone number. it should give the DIN number, it should say the provisions under which this notice have been issued, subject matter, year under audit, 1, 2, 3, 4, and set out the basis on which this notice has come to be issued. So check for the legality and veracity of the notice together with the contents before you answer. Notice must contain the ingredients. It must contain the ingredients for a breach, violation, for a breach, for a violation, or for any of the issues laid down between 65 to 74. It should tell you what is it that is not forthcoming when you conducted an audit. So it should set out the ingredients for the purpose of issue of notice. Examine the issues notice for defects, deficiencies, mistakes, omissions, or estimations. A notice becomes ab initio defective if it is not signed. If it is not signed, simply because it is sent by email, it doesn't mean that it is a valid notice. Even a notice that is sent by an email should have a digital signature of that officer or person in charge. A notice without a document identification number is a notice which is ab initio void. You don't even waste your time to reply to that notice. Don't even waste your time. So examine for defects in a notice. A defect in a notice can be quoting wrong sections. Don't even reply to it. Wrong rule, wrong circular, wrong transaction, cut paste of some other file which is appearing here. Why are you wasting your time saying we are not carrying on business of renting, but we are only carrying on business of leasing? Don't tell him, don't give him information. Just tell him that I am not carrying on the business of renting. Matter over, period. Next, pre-show cause notice consultations. I think effective May 2020, the word shall has been substituted by the word may. So up to 2020, a pre-show cause notice consultation was mandatory. Post 2020, a consultation of pre-show cause notice is not mandatory. It is a choice. It is a discretion. But write to him. You force him to tell you that I don't want to give you an opportunity. You force him to tell you that I don't want you to give me an opportunity. Then the law moves to the next level. It moves to the next level. Now at this stage, the taxpayer must be made to understand. How many of you here have gone to the tax officer at the pre-show cause notice stage to understand what is in his mind? Sir, I'll ode, sir, edit to quota, sir, 46 pages ide, sir. We have carried 46 pages and come off, not knowing what is written there. Whether at all it is your show cause notice, you don't know. You have carried and come off. Only when you come to office, you know it is somebody else, but not this client, because your mind is focused on some client. But show cause notice is for somebody else. We will come back and break our head. So, you must be made to understand. He has to tell you, corporate guarantee, this is the clause under which I am subjecting you to tax. This is the methodology of valuation. I am not going by amortization. I am not going by taxable event. Yak Swami? Now madod business alva, ನೀವು ಕೊಡೋದು ಮಾತ್ರ ಶೋಕಾಸ್ notice. You have to have the courage of conviction to ask him. You have the courage of conviction to ask him. Fear factor. The moment we see him, we want to get back as early as possible to our office. And go and tell the client, in India, useless polon. Right? So, show cause notice must be served. The manner of service, I think Ashok is sitting here. He can perhaps speak on it for one full day. We have 14 modes of service of show cause notice. 14 modes or methods. Please read those 14 modes or methods. For example, if it is served on my colleague Siddesh, who is not a power of attorney holder, you can simply shut up and keep quiet saying it is not served properly. Sometimes what he does, he gives it to a security who is not a security of your building or your office. Don't do anything, keep quiet. Keep quiet. Take the plea that it is not served. Tomorrow he will show you reply. I'm sorry, the acknowledgement. You don't even know who this gentleman is. So, but you have to have the courage to handle these cases. Omission. To object to issues in show cause notice by the taxpayer, be careful. It can be fatal. You cannot say, sir, there were 26 issues. I've answered only 24. Two more, you may not want to answer. You may have missed answering in the maze of issues that you will find. You may actually not have an answer. You may think that I will find an additional objection later. Or alternatively, you see, I'll go and speak to him and come. Speak is over. Show cause has come. Now you have to only reply. No talking, only writing. Right? Speaking later, first writing. So you have to first object to the issues raised in the show cause notice. If there is an issue which doesn't relate to you, deny at the first possible instance. Denial is different from objection. Objecting is saying, "Ouda sir, please see again." Denying is, "I know it is not mine." So deny. Objection comes later. Next. Next. Siddesh, next. Yes. How many of you here, please put up your hands, have read notification 1/2017? First notification. Shankar sir, I saw your hands go up. 1/2017. One of the crucial notifications under the Goods and Service Tax Law. Most crucial notification. If you haven't read 1/2017, please go back home and read 1/2017. If you read 1/2017, you will know the importance of customs tariff. If you read 1/2017, you will know the importance of the Customs Tariff Act. If you read 1/2017, you will know the classification under the Customs Law. If you read 1/2017, you will know that you cannot reply to a Goods and Service Tax notice without the Customs Tariff Act in your hand. Notification of goods and services and the commodity classification. So without these three documents, don't even start to reply to a show cause notice. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your time without these three. Similarly, in case of services, in the case of Services Accounting Code, please don't waste your time if you don't understand the nature of classification of services and the SSE. So it's important that you understand this. So on one hand, you should have the original notification 11 and 12/2017 as amended by several notification circulars, etc. Third, you should have SSE classification. Without that, don't start replying to a show cause notice. Don't hurry. Then, test the notice. Don't rush to reply. Don't rush. Stay calm. Look at the nuances and try to understand what this show cause notice is actually alleging and what is this man trying to tell you. So don't rush, but first understand. Then differentiate the show cause notice in terms of facts and in terms of opinion. Don't mix up both. Show cause notice may be on fact or may be on opinion or a mix of fact and opinion. Sift and sieve. Remove both. Remove both. Keep it separately before you start answering. Then scrutinize the allegations and compare them with evidences that you have. Normally, notices are issued under Section 74. Don't reply. You tell him why 74. 74 has only 3 causes of action. 1, misstatement of fact, suppression or fraud. If these 3 are not there, write back, send back the notice that it cannot be under Section 74. Have the courage of conviction to write that this show cause notice is ab initio void because you have not showed or told me where is the misstatement of fact, suppression or fraud for you to allege that I have committed an offense under Section 74. So don't reply, don't be in a hurry. Next, prepare a checklist of issues. Prepare a checklist of issues and then examine. And don't miss out on any issue while replying. Put every allegation to trial. I want you to put every allegation to a trial. Test it out yourself. If you are not happy with the outcome, put the officer to trial. Tell him what is the basis of your allegation to come to this conclusion. So put it to trial. question it. Don't go off track, be on the job. One case of absconding suppliers, which I already told you earlier. Please put it to test. He is nobody to tell you that the supplier is absconding. Ask him questions, whatever I told you. Check whether the allegation is based on surmise or presumption. If there is a presumption in the notice, it cannot form part of show cause. Under 2 subsection 13 read with section 65. There cannot be a show cause under 73 or 74 on surmise or presumption. It must be on facts. It must be led with evidence. Next, check for contradictory allegations. I have seen assessing authorities say in many places, you have rented out your car, and in some other place he will tell you it is leasing of motor vehicles. One place you say rent, one place you say leasing. Make up your mind whether I have rented out or whether I have leased, because my transaction could be hiring. All three are different under goods and service tax law. So put that allegation to test. Next, check whether he is acting under compulsion. When you go and meet him, he will tell you, Ravindra sir, ನಾನು ಏನು ಮಾಡಲಿ ಸರ್, ನಿಧಾನ ನೋಡಿ ನಮ್ಮ JC. ಒಂದು ಮಾತು ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಡಿ ಸರ್. Who are you to go and tell him? You put that notice to trial. Don't worry about JC. Nothing will happen. Right? So he is acting under compulsion. Now, or he could have relied upon some inspection report. If that inspection report is primarily copied or simply copied, test it. You write to the assessing authorities, say, what is your independent opinion on the inspection report to say that this transaction is liable to tax? You don't say, I have received a category report from DGSTO Ward 5 and therefore you are liable to tax, therefore your tax liability is 8 crores. Don't accept that. Put that to test. Next, check for taxing ingredients. Check for taxing ingredients. The 4 pillars of taxation. If these 4 are missing, ask him. Tell him, don't tax a transaction and then look for supply. You tell him, you tell me what is the supply and then look for tax. So you check for the taxing ingredient. Next, check whether a show cause notice is dictated. Now, what is dictating a show cause notice? That is a very colloquial term that I have used here. The officer himself will not know what he has written there. Sir, JC1 alli ellaru kottidar sir, nanu kottidini. Oho, JC1 somebody has given notice, therefore you have also given notice from JC2. How is it possible? So it is dictated. You ask him, what basis you came to this conclusion? What document you verified? What evidence you have in possession? What is your finding? What is your conclusion? Why did you not tell me in pre-show cause notice consultations that this is the opinion I'm coming to? Why have you converted this to 73? Please ask him. Otherwise, he will not keep quiet. He will continue to do it. Validate show cause notice internally and externally. What is internal validation and external validation? Internal validation is your working papers when you have started submitting replies, whether everything that you have given is correct and complete. Correct and complete. Excel sheet ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಟೋಟಲ್ ಅಟ್ ಸಮ್ ಹಾಕಲ್ಲ, ಫಿಗರ್ ಹಾಕಿ ಕೊಟ್ಬಿಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅಷ್ಟೇ. ಸರ್ ನೋಡೇ ಇಲ್ಲ ಸರ್. That fellow will not leave. He will total with calculator. He will calculate with calculator. So internal, external. Sir, client quota, ange kotbute sir. Ange kotbute sir. Though, why are you giving it just like that? Did you check the veracity of those statements before you enclose those? Influence of allied laws. Taking a position for show cause notice under GST law is one. Getting stuck under allied law is another. Be careful. If you don't know allied laws, call Shankar sir and ask him, sir, JDL ಹಿಂಗೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ, ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್ ಗೇನ್ಸ್ ಏನು ಅಂತ. ಯು ಡೋಂಟ್ ನೋ ಎನಿಥಿಂಗ್, ಯು ಬ್ರಿಂಗ್ ಇಟ್ ಟು ಮೇ ಅಂತಾರೆ, ಎತ್ಕೊಂಡು ಕೂತ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಬಿಡೋದಲ್ಲಿ ಅಷ್ಟೇ. ಶಂಕರ್ ಸರ್ ವಿಲ್ ರೈಟ್ ದ ರಿಪ್ಲೈ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಗಿವ್. ನಾವು ಕಟ್ ಪೇಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಹೋಗ್ಬಿಡೋದು ಅಷ್ಟೇ. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್, seek cross-examination where required. Don't miss that opportunity. Don't miss. If he says, my enforcement one has issued this, you ask for cross-examination. In one of the cases, what happened? Based on consumption of electricity, they issued a notice. That man does not know borewell was running, searchlights were on, he's taken consumption readings late in the evening, He does not know if I put wet areca nut, how much time it will take to dry and therefore come out as powder. And he doesn't know if I put raw areca nut. He also doesn't know whether Chikmagalur areca nut and Shimoga areca nut will take the same time for it to get powdered. He knows nothing. So he just takes the reading and says, so much you should have produced. Therefore, there is suppression of purchase. Therefore, there is suppression of outward supply. Therefore, so many crores of tax will come, etc., etc., etc. So put it to test. Elaborate and long replies versus short reply. Nobody is telling you whether the reply should be long or short. If it is short, say what you want to say and don't miss what you wanted to say but you have not said. Don't miss it. If you miss it, you will not know what to do later, which means you would not have taken a ground. Be careful when you make very precise submissions. Check turnovers, rates, computations, etc. Next. Kavita madam, I promise you I won't take more than 5 minutes. Shankar sir has come. Next. Ashok has also come. Suri has come. Yes, he is also here. Seeking adjournments. I remember Shankar sir's story in our Bangalore branch conference where he said, it is good to take adjournments if you don't know how to defend your case. So we asked him, sir, yen sir, ingelbutri sir, navella CS sir, we are all CS, we know how to defend our case. You take adjournment, man, because you don't know how to defend your case. Sir, why? Because you have taken adjournment for 5 years, Samadhan Vikas scheme, I don't know, whatever, under income tax. The fellow saved interest and penalty. If you had appeared, you would have lost your case with interest and penalty. Everything would have gone. So, when you seek adjournments, you be extremely careful. Adjournments is not a right. You should know how to take adjournments. You should learn from Shankar sir. Final adjournment. This is what tribunal will say. Thank you very much, my lord. Next time. Last time you said final adjournment, your case has come. Yes, my lord, I said. But I am not mentally prepared today. So finally you give me one more adjournment. Adjournment number 2. Adjournment number 3. 2 times final adjournment over. Now third time what? Lord, similar matter. I only argued before Karnataka High Court. Judgment is like it. Oh, I see similar matter you have got. Thank you. 3 months later. We will see later. So when you go in for seeking an adjournment, be extremely careful. It must be well reasoned. Adjournment is not a matter of right. There are a lot of instances where I think Shankar Sir's guru, Venkateshan, may be permitted to say so. The way of taking adjournments, you have to learn the art of arguments. You will have to learn from some of these people. Ashok is no less. Wisdom in seeking adjournment. Whether there is a wisdom, if you seek adjournment, simply because you take a 3-month adjournment, your Shokas notice is not going to change. It will remain where it is. But you are tossing a coin to say, no, Ashok Raghavan would have fought his case. His order would have come. If his order is in favor, I am fine. The reverse is true. He could lose. You are finished. If he loses, he knows how to fight. If I lose, I am finished. I will not even get up. So you have to be extremely careful. Seeking personal hearing and grant of personal hearing are 2 things. Don't forget to seek a personal hearing. The GST law says you shall be granted a personal hearing only if you seek one. If you don't seek, the principles of natural justice will come into play. So he will grant, but he will tell you only one chance. One chance. Be careful when you are looking at authorized representatives. The standing of the council makes a lot of difference to the effectiveness of disposal of a show cause notice. This is coming with some amount of experience. So if the authorized representative who stands there, the perception of the officer at the other end changes. It changes. Please remember that. Therefore, the authorized representative makes a lot of difference. Conflict versus familiarity. One chartered accountant came to me and told me, ಸರ್ ಆಫೀಸರ್ ದೇವ್ರಂತ ಮನುಷ್ಯ ಸರ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಡ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. 1 week later 49 page ಶೋಕಾಸ್ ನೋಟಿಸ್. ಸರ್ ಏನು ಗೊತ್ತಿರೋರು ಏನು ಹಿಂಗೆ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಟ್ರು ಸರ್ ಇವರು? He did not even call me. He took a car and came, landed in Bangalore directly. Be careful. Familiarity versus conflict. Be extremely careful. Don't take anything for granted. Facts versus modified facts versus change in facts versus irrefutable facts. I will tell Shankar sir to spend 2 minutes on this before he commences because I don't have time. Next, check for speaking show cause notices. Constitutionality versus provisions of law. I am not a constitutional expert, but every law is traceable to a constitutional requirement. If you don't know, try and trace it. If you still can't, go to somebody like Ashok who will be able to trace it for you and tell you that this is how you will have to look for it. And then handle your show cause notice. Try and question prudence of observations. The assessing authority will write, the SSC is a habitual defaulter who has not paid taxes promptly and regularly. He is in the habit of not declaring turnovers accurately. He is not in the habit of maintaining books of accounts in a correct and verifiable manner. Therefore, the SSC there is a willful and malified intent on the part of the SSC to defraud government revenue. Swami, ishtondella, how have you written, sir? I have not filed return for 1 month because government has not paid contractors. It is not because I don't want to file, it is because I don't have money. And you are writing off page saying I am a habitual defaulter, willful defaulter. Question that. Question that. Next, filing submissions versus filing writs. Be extremely careful. You can go under 226. 226 could be a very, very open article of the Constitution. But along with 226, there is a sense of responsibility that you take your client along, and 2, it comes with its own risks and rewards. So be very careful when you take that call. Please fight on the strength of the case and based on facts, not with anything else. Next. Now, audit and show cause. This paper is circulated. Whatever I have told you in the last 1.5 hours, this paper will tell you with reference to sections. I promise you that I have dealt with every single bullet point that is coming here. And in the first few slides that I have taken, I will be failing in my duty. If at the time of concluding my session, I do not thank somebody like Shankar sir. He may have forgotten almost 30 years back what he did. I think it was Madheshwara Lorries Services case, section 139 of the income tax law. I think Ashok will remember that case as well, Madheshwara Lorries Service. Those were probably my student days. I did not know how to read law, how to read case laws, how to read punctuations, how to read words and phrases, how to attribute dictionary meanings and bring it into replies to show cause notices. What should one look at the moment you get a show cause notice? Should you be petrified? Should you be scared? Those were the learnings. Shankar sir might have forgotten, but I have not forgotten. If I was able to speak to you for some time, a lot of it is from the learnings of those days and from seniors. The number of arguments I've had with Ashok Raghavan in respect of classes of transactions have been classes of immense learning insofar as I'm concerned. There are many seniors and chartered accountants here whose notices I have dealt with whom I have had discussions. Those were the learnings that I carried with me when I prepared these first few slides. We have a set of friends who we call a group of buddies. One of them is no longer with us. 2 of them are here. Ashok and Gunshil are here. Whatever I have done today, credit goes to Sidesh, who has written my paper. I have only come and explained those papers. I see the chairperson Divya here. Thank you, Divya Madam, Bangalore branch, and 7 other branches, or 8 other branches. 8 other branches of the Institute of Chartered Accountants for having given me this opportunity to share some of my thoughts with you. These are some of the initial thoughts of how you reply to a show cause notice. and how you handle these cases. Thank you very much. Thank you, Bangalore branch. Thank you, other branches, for having given me this opportunity.
None other than our walking GST ready reckoner CAS Venkataramani sir could have made it this interesting, even though it's a session post heavy lunch. The beauty of sir's session is always that he keeps it in a conversational style, and maybe that's the secret ingredient. Now that we have learned the art of questioning the department, I'm sure they will keep a session of sirs to train the officers to answer these questions back. Till then, we all are safe. We can make use of this art. So with that, the forum is open for quick question-answer sessions. If anyone is having any question, we can take 1 or 2 questions. Okay, with that, I request CA Kavita ma'am to conclude the session.
Looks like there are no questions. Only 2 ways where there are no questions. This is what I heard from my teachers in the school. Either you're fully understood or you're not understood anything. So probably it is the first one here, because Shankar sir went so fluently on the entire thing. Sorry, sir, sorry, my apologies, Venkataramani sir. Okay. When I was getting off the dais, I thought, okay, GST is not my area of practice. I can take a nap, quick nap after the lunch. But there was no chance at all. He took my name so many times and kept me awake. Not only that, made me think of GST and also certain terms which we had taken for granted while auditing, whether it is unbilled revenue, prepaid expenses, AMCs. I think there's a different perspective to the audit as well as the GST practice. Now I can take and go and talk to my GST colleagues about what GST means and how the replies have to go. I think that is the situation with most of you. It was a wonderful session, sir. Thank you so much. Can we have a big round of applause to sir? As a token of gratitude, we would like to present a memento. I request Gautam Nayak to come and present this memento. On behalf of Bengaluru branch, thank you again, sir. Thank you so much.